Okay, now I can figure out why you couldn't hear me. It wasn't actually on the microphone. Okay, cool. So I'm hoping, are you talking? Yes, I am talking. Just switch to your mic. Switch. Let's start again. All right. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. Glad to see you back. Okay, you got some sound on. Okay, cool. Cool. Sorry about that. I'm just returned back to work trying to figure out what I'm doing. What am I doing here? So I've just come back from 2 weeks in India. So it was very, very exciting. Had a great time over there. Went to a previous client's wedding in India, which was very, very exciting. And I also traveled with a previous client for 2 weeks around India. So I got to see a lot of North India, which was very exciting. And while I was there, I also checked out some training organisations and looking at delivering Australian qualifications in India. And I actually saw quite a few training organisations while I was over there. So that was very exciting to be able to see that. Hoping we didn't. Right. Hopefully that's better. Sorry, microphone's playing off. Okay. Yeah, so it was very exciting because I got to actually see training organisations over there and see how they deliver training in India. And it was like the vocational training equivalent over there. But this client who I was with, they are delivering our Australian qualifications in India. So that was very exciting to actually see that. You might have seen on our Facebook page, I posted some photos of the wedding, and I also posted some photos of the training facilities, some of the training facilities that we visited while we were over there. One that was just being built, which was very exciting. So had a great time. It was winter over there, so it was quite cold, but yeah, really good. Eye-opener for me. Never been to India before, so I learnt heaps, saw a lot. Saw Taj Mahal, Golden Temple, palaces and forts and culture, and experienced all sorts of things. They loved my red hair over there. It was really crazy. I had strange people coming up and walking up to me and taking photos of me, just taking selfies with me, which was really, really bizarre for me. I'd never experienced that ever before in my life. So everywhere I went, I was having people taking photos of me. So it was quite bizarre because I felt like some sort of celebrity. But apparently it was my white skin and my red hair that was just standing out. So that was, really exciting, but really, really, really good trip. Loved it. Anybody else want to take me overseas to see their country? Love to. I've had another client who's Chinese client who's offered to take me over there. So, I'm quite happy to go travel and go check out and you can get some free advice while I'm over there. Anyway, that was cool. So that was my trip. Hope you had a great break and are ready and raring for an awesome New Year 2017. Absolutely going to rock. We've got some amazing things we want to do this year. I'm feeling really pumped about an exciting 2017 and so many things that we want to do this year. So really excited about that. Okay, so let's get back to this. So today's webinar is on standards 1.1 to 1.6, which is training and assessment strategies, and one of the key components of training and assessment strategies is industry consultation. One of the things I can say about, and I've actually got it on one of our slides, is training assessment strategies is the most important document at audit and the most important document that you should keep updated on a regular basis, because that's where most training organisations are non-compliant, and I'll talk about the importance of your TASs and things like that when we get there. Okay. All right, so this webinar forms part of your continuous improvement process under Standard 2.2. You should hold a Q&C meeting following this webinar, where at that meeting, so you would have received an email that tells you what to do with that meeting. At that meeting, you should minute that you attended this webinar, what you learned. Are you following these policies and procedures? If not, Do you need to change your practices, or do you need to change the policies and procedures? That's what you should be doing. If you do change any of your policies and procedures because it might be something that you need to do different, or you've identified that you're not actually doing what I'm going through today and what's part of the policies and procedures, you should do a continuous improvement, opportunity for improvement form, complete one of those and minute it at your next meeting that you are improving your practices based on what you've learnt today. If you go to Standard 2.2 in your Policies and Procedures Manual, you'll see the process for your meetings and minuting your meetings, which you also have your minutes, templates and things like that. And then also you can see in there the process for meetings, process for continuous improvement, process for opportunities for improvement as well. So you should be reviewing your documentation. Now, the reason why we set the training and assessment strategy, so the standards for 1.1 to 1.4 at this time of the year, because normally it's a bit slower for training organisations, so it's a great time to be reviewing your training and assessment strategies. Even if you just review it and have a look at it and go, are these the units that we're delivering right now? If not, do we need to change any of the units on the TAS? Is this the way we are delivering? Are we delivering it 2 days, 3 days, 4 days a week, these many hours? Is this the delivery methodology we're using, face-to-face, online, distance learning, however you're doing it? And are these the assessment methods we're using? So you should be reviewing your training assessment strategy and identifying, are we actually doing everything that it says on our training assessment strategy that we are doing? More often than not, when I go back for post-initial audits or re-reg audits, more often than not, what training organisations are doing they are not updating the training and assessment strategy. They're changing their marketing material, but they haven't changed their training assessment strategy. You should change your training and assessment strategy first, then your marketing material. It should be everything, like your training and assessment strategy document is your working document. It's the document you use to work out what you should be doing, how you should be delivering. If you are changing any of your modes of delivery or how your strategies on delivery and assessment, it should be your TAS that you change first, and then update your marketing material and your delivery methodology, everything else that you're doing. You should also be reviewing your training and assessment strategy and updating. So once a year, at least once a year, you should be undertaking industry consultation and updating your training and assessment strategy based on that industry consultation. So we'll go through that further today. We'll have a look at that. So standards 1.1 and 1.4 is all about how to strategy, or as the standard says, your strategy for training and assessment. Okay, are we still hearing me? I've just had a message come up saying that the link is weak. Just let me know yes or no. Yes, you're hearing me. No, yes, you are. Okay, so I've got a yes. I'm hoping there's going to be a couple more yeses. Sorry, it was just an error message that came up there. Yes, cool. Also, your strategy is the key document required at audit, as it explains how you are delivering your training and assessment. So when you're for an initial registration, we're developing a training and assessment strategy on how you plan to deliver and assess. For post-initial registration audits and re-registration audits, you need to update your training and assessment strategy to ensure that it's ready, that it's in line with how you're delivering and assessing. As I said, January is the perfect time to be reviewing all your training and assessment strategies. If you're doing it at least once a year, at least you're getting it reviewed once a year, because things can change. Little things can change over a year. It might be that you just tweak it a little bit, but you actually haven't updated your training and assessment strategy. It's a good time of the year to go back through your training and assessment strategies and go, oh, is this how we're actually delivering and assessing? TASs provide the auditor, your staff and potential clients with an outline of your training and how you will meet the target audience requirements. So you should have identified who are your target audience and then how are you going to meet the needs of that target audience? And we're going to go into that a bit further about target audience, because there's a whole lot of people just go, well, everyone is our target audience. No, if you do that, you have to also have delivery and assessment methodologies for everyone. So we'll go into detail about that. The most important component of your TAS is your industry consultation, and that you are doing it regularly. So I'm going to do a big focus on industry consultation today. Okay, so I've just got a little template. We're going to go through the training and assessment strategy document in detail. So I'm actually going to bring that up on the screen and we're going to have a look at that in detail, but that's just a quick snapshot of it. As I said, it's the key document for identifying your strategies on how you will deliver and assess your training. And this is the key document for both a site and a desk audit. So it's got to be kept up to date on a regular basis, and the standards actually state that it must be up to date at all times. So you could have a random audit at any time, and you could have ASCO get in contact with you at any time and state that they want to get a copy of your training and assessment strategy, and it should be up to date. So it should be reviewed at least once a year. But whenever you have a anytime you change your delivery and assessment strategy, your plan on how you're going to do it, TAS should be the first thing that you should change. You should update that. That's your working document. Okay, so the key points to developing a TAS, and we're going to go into these in much more detail when I actually go to the TAS document, is making sure that it includes the most current training package information, which you'll get from training.gov.au, and that is the information about the units, the competencies, the qualification, training pathways, that sort of stuff. Your target client group, so who is your target client group? What is their existing skills and knowledge? So what do they need to have before they enter into this course? What skills and knowledge must they have? Sometimes it might be that they need nothing, but other times it will be that they will need to have existing skills and knowledge before they can enter into this qualification. That's in particular for Cert 3, 4 and diploma levels, qualifications, where they should have existing skills and knowledge. And it might be that they need to hold a prior qual, or it might be they need to have industry experience or equivalents. What is your selection criteria? What are you saying is the entry requirement into this course? It could be part of their existing skills and knowledge, or it could be you've made a prerequisite that they must have existing skills and knowledge, or a qualification or something like that. So you've stated what is your selection criteria. And what are the typical client needs that you have identified that your clients may have? So if it's for initial registration, it might be what you've identified the needs they might have. If you've already been delivering training, you should go back into your TAS and update it with what are the typical needs that you've identified in the last year, 2, 3, 4, 10 years? What are the needs that you've identified? Needs have come up that you've had to adjust training to meet their needs over that time. What are the typical things that you found? It might be that you need to change the entry requirements. It might be that these are the typical things that you need to adjust. It might be language literacy and numeracy is low. It might be that their typical needs are that they're non-English speaking background, so you needed to get interpreters or assistants. It might be that they're low language and literacy and you needed to get job network providers involved, or counsellors involved, or support workers involved to come in and work with you with the delivery of the training. So that's some examples. Industry consultation. Who did you consult with? What did you learn from that consultation? What feedback did you get? And how did you adjust your training and assessment to meet those industry needs? This is really, really important. If you haven't got this in place, if you haven't got, how have you adjusted the training to meet the industry needs, ASCO are going to come in and go, well, how are you delivering training to meet industry needs if you haven't even addressed what their needs are or haven't even done any consultation in the first place? So this is a key part to the development of your training and assessment strategy and review and update of your training and assessment strategy. What's the point of delivering training and assessment if it's not actually meeting the industry needs? So where they're going to get a job. Training packages are built, they're supposed to meet industry needs, but you can't rely on that alone, because training packages get outdated really quickly and they're not always up to speed with what the industry wants. I've seen it time and time again where a training package says one thing and industry says, no, actually that's not right. That's not how we want to have our training delivered or assessed. Now, you still have to assess against the industry, the training package requirements, but you also have to assess against the industry requirements. And you can actually validate changing assessments to meet industry needs and not meet the training package needs by getting some industry consultation, getting letters, doing group consultation, getting letters of support, doing industry surveys. So we're going to go further into industry consultation. So also it's a staff matrix. So you need to make sure once a year that your trainers and assessors are updating their staff matrix. What professional development did they do in the last year? What have they updated their qualification in the last year? That includes their training and assessment qualification and the qualification that they're delivering to train and assess. So, for example, Diploma of Business, for example, they should be updating their staff matrix at least once a year, and that is your trainer's responsibility. We actually have it in the position description that it is their responsibility to keep their staff matrix up to date and to do professional development on a regular basis, on an annual basis at least. So that's another document that should be updated. What are the physical resources you're using? Have the textbooks changed? Have you changed the assessment tools? Have you contextualized your assessment tools that you originally purchased and now they've changed because you've updated them to meet certain requirements? They need to be listed in the training and assessment strategies. What facilities and resources do you need to deliver this training and assessment? That should be in your training and assessment strategy. What do you have to have on site or in the training room when you're delivering your training and assessment in order for the student to be able to be assessed competently? What are your delivery methodologies? What's the mode of delivery? Are you doing it face-to-face, online, distance? What is the delivery structure? So you should have a delivery and assessment plan that should have this in there. When are you delivering what units? So what units are you delivering when? And how are you delivering those? What resources do you need in place to deliver those units of competencies? And then the assessment methodology. What are the types of assessments that you will be conducting in order to meet the unit of competency requirements? And how have you mapped those assessment tools against the performance criteria of each unit of competency? Now, most assessment tools that you purchase will have an assessment mapping tool, but if you've made some amendments to the assessment tool, you need to also update your mapping tool to make sure that it maps across to the units of competencies and the performance criteria within that unit of competency. And then what's your validation process? So that shouldn't really change because your validation process is actually our policy and procedure, but you should update your assessment validation schedule at least once a year with the validation that you've actually conducted. So you should include on your schedule, okay, we've actually validated these units on this date and these were the people who attended. This is what we discovered when we did validation and these are the improvements that we made based on that assessment validation. And that should be documented with your training and assessment strategy. So the training package breakdown of that, you get information on the training package from training.gov.au. Within the on training.gov.au, you actually see the packaging rules. So what units of competencies, what are the core, what are the electives, what groups you can choose from. Also in the packaging rules is prerequisites, co-requisites. So if there's units that need to have another unit, they must have another unit before they do that unit. And also co-requisites are units that should be delivered and assessed together. What else are in the packaging rules? In the packaging rules is also how you should assess, if simulations required, what the performance criteria is, so what you should be assessing against, and you'll also see within the packaging rules different ways that you should be assessing as well. You should also be looking at the foundation skills. So within each unit of competency, you will see the foundation skills. You should be reviewing those. Have they changed? Have they been updated? You need to look at those foundation skills. And are you actually assessing against those foundation skills? So, or do they actually have those foundation skills before they enter into the course? So are they meeting the foundation skills requirements before entry, but also once they get up and going, get started? And you should also include any licensing requirements. That's not necessarily in the training package. There might be licensing requirements that you have outside of the training package requirements, and it might be another legislative body, for example, with responsible service of alcohol. That comes under in New South Wales Office of Liquor, Gaming and Racing, and they have a licensing outcome. So you'll need to also look at what are the licensing outcome requirements. So when you're reviewing your training and assessment strategy, you should also be going to OLGA, Office of Liquor, Gaming and Racing, and to look at if there's any changes to the licensing requirements. Now, more often than not, you'll know that there's been changes to any licensing requirements as it happens, and that's when you should update your TAS. You should be doing it as that change happens. But once a year, that's an opportunity for you to go back and actually have a look. Has there been any changes that we missed? And we review it and actually update your training and assessment strategy to meet those needs. Okay, so, all right, before I go on to the delivery and assessment plan, I'm actually going to share my desktop with you, and we're just going to have a more in-depth look into the training and assessment strategy. So you should now be able to see my desktop. If someone can just say, yes, they can see it. You should be able to see the training and assessment strategy document. And sometimes it takes just a little bit for it to come up. Yes, good, awesome. Okay, all right, so this is the training and assessment strategy document here on the on our screen. This template is the one that we use with all of our clients. Initially, if you have done initial registration with us or re-registration or an addition to scope, we would have developed the TAS for you. If you are a member and you haven't been a previous client of ours working on other documents, you can access this through your documents on Unicorn. All of ours are in security license, including firearms. Usually no change in that. Okay, yeah. Yes. Okay, Peter's just sent me a message stating that all of ours are security licensing, including firearms for armed guards. Usually no changes are allowed to any training or assessments. Now, yes, that's true, as in you're not allowed to change the legislative or the other licensing bodies' assessment tools. But when you're audited by ASQA, you are audited against the performance criteria of the unit of competency and the assessment requirements. You are not audited against the licensed assessment tool. If the licensed assessment tool does not meet the performance criteria and the assessment conditions of the unit of competency, you will be non-compliant. And it doesn't matter what the licensing body says. They don't care. What ASQA requirements are is that you meet that requirement. So, yes, you may not be able to change the training and assessment tool that's been issued by the licensed organisation, but you can have additional assessments that meet the performance criteria and the assessment conditions of the unit of competency, and you must have that in place. So I'm hoping that clarifies that to you, Peter, because when you're audited, it's not just going to be the licensed tool that you assessment tool that you have in place. They're going to be auditing you against the performance criteria and the assessment conditions of the unit of competency. And if you are non-compliant against that, you are non-compliant against the standards. So you need, and this is where assessment validation is very, very important, because you should validate your assessment tool that you are provided by the licensed regulator, the licensed regulator. Check that that assessment tool actually meets the performance criteria and the assessment conditions. If it doesn't, then you have to provide an additional assessment tool that does that gap between the licensed regulator assessment tool and the performance criteria and the assessment conditions. So you may have to have two assessment tools, one that's specifically for the license outcome, and the other is to meet the performance criteria of the unit of competency. So I'm hoping that explains that bit there. Very, very good question. Excellent that you brought that up, because yes, that's a common thing that comes up, because I know we had a lot of issues for years and years and years where responsible service of alcohol didn't actually align. So the tool that Olga provided in New South Wales didn't actually align with the performance criteria of the unit of competency and the assessment conditions. So they've now done a whole rewrite, and it now does meet the requirements. I think it does, and Callum can tell me that whether it does or not when he did his performance assessment validation. More often than not, it wasn't matching up. Okay, so this is the training and assessment strategy document. I've just seen a spelling mistake. Might have to fix that. Okay, so this is the training assessment strategy template that we use. Everything in yellow here is what you get from training.gov.au. So you go to the training package and you pop that in here. This is the executive summary. The point of the executive summary is for anybody reviewing this document, including auditors or trainers and assessors, or maybe a potential client, anybody who's reviewing this, this is a snapshot of what's in this TAS. So it's a snapshot of who you consulted, why you're putting this qualification on your scope, or why you have this qualification in the scope. Is there an industry need that you're specifically meeting? Is there a company? You can develop this training and assessment strategy document for a particular company. And so this executive summary could be for that company. So it could be that you've developed this training assessment strategy particularly for a company, and it meets their specific requirements. So in the executive summary here, you put in, okay, we've met your specific requirements by the way we're going to deliver and assess this training and assessment. We've met your needs, and this was developed specifically for you. If you are meeting, it could be a specific industry need, it could be a specific community need. So it might be that you've put this qualification on your scope, or you have this qualification on your scope, particularly to meet a community need. So it could be that you're in a mining community and that you have mining qualifications, or you have qualifications or units of competencies that are specifically going to meet the community need within your area for mining. So it could be that you need to update that there. Okay, so that's what the point of the executive summary is. For auditors, it gives them a snapshot of how you deliver and assess on why you have this qualification on the scope, or why you want to put this qualification on your scope. And without them having to read the whole document, they can just read this and go, okay, this is why you've got this on your scope and what you want to do with it. The SSO, so Service Skills Organisation, that we just get that from the training package of what SSO it relates to, and what are the packaging rules. And basically this is just a copy and paste. So if you have a full qual, you'll do the packaging rules. If you just have a single unit, you'll delete this row and just use this row for unit of competency. So you'll just have this one. If you're doing a full qual, you delete this row and you keep this row. So you just have the packaging rules for the full qual. And basically this is just a cut and paste from the training package. What is the full qualification? What is the unit of competencies? We don't actually put the unit of competencies in there. It'll tell you how many core, how many electives that you have. Okay, and I have it in the instructions here. For single units, you delete this row. For full qualifications, you delete this row, so that you know which ones to use. That's if you're using this TAS template yourself to develop your own TAS. If we do it for you, all the yellow bits will be done for you. It'll all be gone for you. Okay, if you have a pathway, you may or may not need this. It used to be in the training package. It will actually outline what is a pathway. So if you've done the Cert 4, then you could do the diploma. For childcare, for example, you do the Cert 3 and then you go straight to the diploma. It just helps the student as well identify what the pathway is when they do this qualification. Foundation skills, you just get that from each unit of competency. So each unit will actually identify what are the foundation skills for that unit of competency, and it's basically just a cut and paste from each unit that you put in there, and you just pop it in there. That helps you with your delivery and assessment. That's the reason why we put it in there. So you've got to make sure that you're meeting those requirements. Sorry, just having a glass of water. Okay, this is where we identify the units. So the unit code, title, whether it's a core or elective. So we actually identify in here. How many hours will the student be required to do self-pace, face-to-face, or some cases it might be work placement. Not everybody does work placement. Not every qualification is required to do work placement, but that's where you put your work placement hours, and then the total volume of learning for those total hours for that unit of competency. And then we break it down the total hours, and we'll actually have a look at volume of learning today, and what are the volume of learning requirements. So I'll go into that. But this is really important. If you're not meeting the volume of learning requirements, you will be non-compliant. So you need to make sure that you're meeting the volume of learning requirements. Now, the only way you get away with not meeting the volume of learning requirements is if you, for example, if you are doing a licensed outcome, for example, in New South Wales under SLED, which is the Security Licensing, I can't remember what ED stands for, but it's a regulator for security licensing. If you go to them, you can actually get validation that they, like a certificate 3 doesn't have to be delivered over the volume of learning hours. You can actually shorten the course because the regulator for the license outcome has said that you can do less hours. So that's the only way you can, that's one way. That's one way you can reduce your hours. There are other ways you can reduce hours. That includes prior skills and knowledge. So it could be that they are required to currently be working in the industry. It could be that they have to hold a current qualification. There's different ways you can reduce volume of learning. I'll talk about that more when I get to volume of learning. Rationale. This rationale is, why did you put in particular the elective units together? Why did you choose those electives? It should be because industry said so, or it might be that it's a license requirement. So you should be looking at what we've chosen these electives because the license requirement states that we need to use this one. Or we've chosen these elective units because through our industry consultation, we identified that these elective units are one of the preferred options for the industry, what they want. So that's your rationale. That's what you should put in here. It's only required for full quals, not for single units. So if you have a single unit, you can delete the whole row. So just delete the whole row. You don't need the row for single units. It's you do for skill sets and you do for full qualifications. So you should put in there, what is your rationale? If you have a license outcome, you need this row. If you don't, delete the row. So if you have don't have a license outcome, you can delete the row. If you do have a license outcome, you should put in here, what is the license requirements? What are your license requirements for the, and basically you get it from the regulator for the license outcome. So you just basically can cut and paste that into there. What are the license requirements? Okay, your target client group. Now, we get this all the time. Like, we've got a whole heap here. For some reason, it's not selecting now. Oh, there we go. We've got a whole heap of different options here for your target client group. Now, well and dandy, you can have all of these included on your TAS. Problem is, when you go to audit, the auditor will want to see how you've contextualized all your training and assessment to meet all of these target audience requirements. So the more you have in here, the harder it is to develop your training and assessment strategy, but also your delivery and assessment methodologies to meet all of those industry requirements. Now, what you should do is identify, so if you're in initial registration, you should identify who do you think will be your industry that you will be working with, and your target audience, and just focus on your target audience. Don't go with lots, only go with a couple. If you're already delivering training and assessment, when you review your TAS, you should go back and go, who are our actual clients? Who are we actually delivering training to? And that's who should be in here. Now, I've got an example here, but you could use a paragraph if you wanted to. You don't have to use a bullet point. You could change these. You don't have to have them exactly as this. This is just to give you a guide. It's not set in concrete that this is the way that you put existing workers. You can change this to existing industry employees working within the mining industry who need skills to update they need training to update their skills to the current industry requirements. So you can get more specific to who are your actual target audience. And ASP will want to see that, particularly for post initials and re-registration. They want to see that you've updated this to who are your actual target audience. And they will actually look at who are your typical students when they look at the assessment tools and the enrollment forms. Where are they coming from? If you're getting them from companies, they want to see that you've updated this to actually state that it's companies that you've identified are your industry, are your client audience. So it's really important here that you include who are your actual target audience, not list everybody. Now, in saying that, what people say is, but we want everybody. We want everybody to come into our course. Just because you target an audience doesn't mean you cut out everybody else. It just means that you've developed the way you're going to deliver and assess this qualification or unit of competency for this target audience. If you happen to capture a whole heap of other students, woohoo, great, that's awesome. But make sure you focus on who are your target audience. Now, when you go back to review your training and assessment strategy, you might go, you will put here your target audience is the majority of people that you've captured. You might have captured some other people, so it might be your majority is existing workers, but you might have got some new entrants or vice versa. Your target was new entrants, but you captured some existing workers as well. So, and you could put that in there, depending on how many you've got. If you've got like 50-50, you should include both of those in there. If you've got 30% or 33% of each, you should put all three in there. So it should be with the majority. That should be your target audience in there. Really, really important. This has been pulled up on numerous times at audit because our lovely clients have gone to audit and explained this is our target audience, or for post-initial and re-reg audit, the auditor's actually saying, well, these are your typical clients, not what you've put in here. Why have you not updated your TAS? So you need to make sure that this is a true reflection of who are your actual target audience. And you'll capture others. Well and good. That's what you should do. You will capture other students. Okay, existing skills and knowledge. These are what should the student have before they come and do this course. So an example is reading and writing, oral communication, numeracy and mathematics, but it could be a qualification. You might say their existing skills and knowledge should be they must hold this qualification. Existing skills and knowledge is they must have at least 5 years industry experience within an office environment to work as a manager to complete a diploma level qualification. Because a diploma level, at most diploma level quals, they should have some industry experience first, and some other knowledge or another qualification. So they should hold something else. So this is where you list this here. So all these pink bits pieces in here is what you need to complete because you're the experts in your industry. We're not the experts in your industry. So you should complete this section here. We'll guide you, of course, but you should complete this section here. Selection criteria. You might say, actually, we've got a selection criteria. You must meet this requirement in order for us to take you on in this course. Or they must do a police record check or a working with children check. So some industries require that they must do that. Relevant prior skills and knowledge. So you can see the selection criteria and their existing skills and knowledge could match. You could do some things that will match up in there. But there's some other requirements here. What age must they be? Do they have to be over the age of 18? It could be that you want to set that they have to be over the age of 25. Some license requirements state that they must be over the age of 18. So you need to include that in there. Do they need to hold a driver's license? If you're doing heavy vehicle licensing, yes, you will need to hold a license. Due to the physical requirements of this unit, they will need to have the ability to be able to perform CPR. So this is in particular for first aid units. They will need to be physically fit. There might be other qualifications like working at heights and confined space where they need to be physically fit. Heights, they need to be able to climb up ladders and things like that. So we need to update that. Now, for your selection criteria, you should also refer to your industry consultation. Is there anything with your industry consultation where they said they need to have this before they come and do this course, or they need to have this when they come out of the course? You should have this in there. This section here is how you've identified client needs. So we've identified a whole heap here that you could possibly need. Basically delete anything that's not relevant. So if English as a second language is not relevant, which is pretty uncommon in Australia, but it may be that you have one that's English as a second language, you could delete this row. One that is common but we have to remove is physical or mental disabilities, because some qualifications, they can't have a physical or mental disability, particularly if they're doing physical activities. For example, first aid, they need to get up and down off the floor, so they can't have a physical disability where you can make an adjustment to training for them. So that one will need to be deleted. But pretty much we've populated that for you, and it's just basically deleting. But you might find there's another one. There might be one that's very specific that you know about that needs to be added here, and you should add that there. If they need to be physically fit, you can't modify the educational facility premises, so this may need to be deleted due to physical requirements, but pretty much everything else can just stay the same. Industry consultation, this is our method. This ties in with our policy and procedure on industry consultation, that you will attend industry workshops, attend service skills organisations and attend meetings with them. You will undertake industry consultation surveys, you'll meet with industry, you'll undertake training needs analysis, subscribe to industry newsletters, and engage consultants like us, for example. Now, you should have more than one of these, but you don't have to have all of them, evidence of all of them. But you should try and do as many of these as possible, particularly when you're going for post-initial and re-registration. You should have as many of these as possible that you've undertaken, and you should have evidence of it. So you should have an industry consultation folder or something like that, so you've got evidence of that industry consultation that you've taken. Our methodology is to undertake industry surveys. So in those industry surveys, you should put in there who did you consult with, the name of the organisation, name of the person that you spoke to, and also their role or title in that organisation, and when did you do that industry consultation, and keep evidence of those industry consultation surveys. As I stated, this is only one method of industry consultation. There's a whole heap of others here. You can put in, you don't have to put just the industry surveys here. You can put who else did you meet with here. You can put evidence of that in here as well. Letters of support. If you've done a training needs analysis, if you haven't, training needs analysis is very specific to an organisation. So it might be a company that you've developed this training and assessment strategy specifically for that company. So this is where you would put it in here. So it's not common that you do this, but if you are delivering training specifically for a company, you should do a training needs analysis, and that template is in Unicorn in your documents. This is really important. This section here is feedback from consultation. So you consulted with industry. What was the feedback that you got? So you should put that in here from the surveys, from meetings, from SSOs, from letters of support. You should put your feedback in here. And the more feedback, the better. The more you can put in here, the better. I don't like seeing 3 or 4 points. You should have half a page of feedback. Addressing the feedback should be, okay, this is what the feedback you got. How have you addressed that feedback to improve your training to meet industry needs? Once again, at least half a page. How have you met the industry needs? Industry said, we want training delivered and assessed this way. This is, sometimes you don't agree with what they've said. Sometimes they say, we want, full-time course. But you've identified, well, actually full-time doesn't work for us because we don't have a trainer who can do full-time. We can only do part-time. So you address the feedback by saying, well, actually, yes, we identified that they wanted a full-time course, but due to our restraints with trainers and assessors or our typical students have been nighttime. They've wanted it at nighttime. Student feedback has been, so industry feedback might be that they want a day course, but student feedback is we want a night course because we're doing other jobs. I had one example is the students who were doing the course had a day job and they couldn't do the course. I think it was security industry, actually. So they were trying to enter into the security industry. They couldn't do it during the day. They needed to do it at nighttime because they were often holding down other jobs so that they could then get into the security industry. So they needed to go at nighttime. So that's an example of feedback that you can put in there. So what feedback did you get from consultation and how have you addressed that? What you've gone, yep, this is the feedback we've got. This is how we've addressed it. What we're going to do to improve it. Staff matrix is pretty easy. It's just the trainer updating the staff matrix in order to in line with their current skills and knowledge. So that's just the staff matrix template that they fix up there. Physical resources is just listing what are the training and assessment tools. What textbooks are we using? What assessment tools are we using? What guides do we have in place? Training facilities, give a description of your training facilities. If it's not your training facilities, what training facilities will you need to have in place if you're doing it off-site? What should be at that training facilities? What equipment should be there? In particular, if you're doing things like you might be working at heights. If you're working at heights and you're delivering training and working at heights and you're delivering it on site somewhere else, what should be at that facilities? What resources should be there? And we actually have a section here for external. So it might be where you are delivering off-site. And this might be when you're delivering in your own training facility. So this should be standard for your own training facilities or a place that you're hiring on a regular basis. Here should be the facilities and resources as per the training package. So we're just inserting this from the training package or the implementation guide. So you've got the companion guides that are included with assessment tools, which you can see on TGA. You go onto TGA and it will have a link to the companion guides and you can click on that link to the companion guides. You've got to remember to go to the companion guides when developing your TAS because the companion guide has some really good tips and tricks on how you should be delivering and assessing the training. That's the external resources. Should be on there. This is just basic infrastructure that you'll have there. It doesn't change. That just stays the same. Mode of delivery. How are you going to deliver? Classroom, online, correspondence. We've got some examples here. You can change these up. You don't have to have them exactly the same. When we're developing a TAS for you, we'll put what you've selected as your delivery method. So classroom, online, correspondence, however you've stated you want to do it. We've added this row. This is only new end of last year. We're now putting the course fees on the TAS because everything on your marketing material should come from this. So how are you doing payment plans? What are the fees? How have you worked out those fees? Things like that be on there. If you have a simulated work environment, what is that simulated work environment? So it might be doing confined space training and you have you have a facility that you can take around from different sites, from site to site, and you have a simulated facility where you can do that. Or working at heights or something like that. You could have a facility or equipment that you can take around from site to site. I've seen working at heights and confined space equipment where it's on a trailer and it's a container. I was trying to think of container. I knew there was a word for it. Container that's being put on the back of a trailer and you can actually cart it around. Or it could be that it's at your site and you've got the simulated work environment at your site. Aged care is another example. I've got a client who has an aged care facility basically set up, so training rooms that look like an aged care facility, and that's their simulated environment, or a childcare centre set up at their facility, at their training centre. Delivery structure, how are you going to deliver? How many students per class? What's your maximum class size? How many sessions per week? How many hours in those sessions? How many hours do they have to do self-paced? Perhaps even per week. How many hours self-paced should they do per week? If there's work placement hours, what are the work placement hours that they need to do? So how many hours should they be doing that for? If you are doing work placement, if you're not, delete these two. if you are, you need to keep these ones. Describe the facility for work placement. How many years experience should the supervisor have? And this is the breakdown of the supervisors. All supervisors are responsible for supervising students within the workplace and must hold what qualification? How many years experience should they hold? What are your work placement MOUs, if it memorandum of understanding that you have in place with their work placement? This should be included on here as well. What are your assessment methodologies? We've listed a whole heap of different types of assessment methodologies. Basically, you delete the ones that are not relevant against your assessment tools. You may need to contextualize this to how you're actually observing and doing demonstration. How are you doing oral questioning? How are you doing your written assessments? We've just given you an example of, in most cases, this would be fine, but you need to make sure that this actually matches with your assessment tools and how you are actually assessing. Assessment mapping. If you have assessment mapping included with your assessment tools, which most assessment tools do, you just need this row and you can delete this row. You don't need this row here. If you have it included and you just have it here, what is your, as an attachment? So what is the attachment there? If you don't have any mapping, you can do your own mapping here. So you just put the UOC code, and then what is the mapping against here? And you might need to change the assessment method here to what is the actual assessment method you're using. You just pop that in there. But most cases, you're going to delete this row and only have this row and just use the assessment mapping tool that you already have in place. Don't reinvent the wheel. If you've already got an assessment mapping tool as a separate document, have it here as an attachment. If you haven't, then you map here. You should also have developed a delivery and assessment plan, which we're going to talk about a little bit further. Which you should have contextualized your assessment tools. You should put in here how you contextualize it. We've just done a standard statement about contextualization in here, and that you've adjusted the assessment tools to meet your industry needs. And we've just got a motherhood statement here about RPL because you can refer to the policy and procedure about recognition of prior learning, RPL. Validation process is just our policy and procedure. So we've just included the policy and procedure on the TAS, so you don't need to change anything there. Other than your assessment validation schedule, you'll need to do that as an attachment. And you'll need to update the assessment validation schedule. As I stated, you should do that at least once a year. Monitoring improvements, just tie in with our policies and procedures. And that's the TAS. Okay, we should go back to the slides soon. We'll go back to the slides, maybe. Stop sharing screen. Okay, we'll go back to the slides. Sorry, I'll just take a little bit. I don't know why it just doesn't open it up. 17. Okay, we'll go back to the slides. Okay, so that's training package. Delivery and assessment plan. This document provides trainers and assessors with a plan on how you want the RTO. Do we have any questions before I move on? I'm just sort of moving on. Do anybody have any questions? No, I keep a watch on the chat. So if you throw a question in, I will definitely read it and then incorporate it into my webinar. But I didn't have any questions, so I just kept going. No, thanks. Nearly time to go, unfortunately. Okay. I'll mostly go over time. So just let you know, I will most probably go over time because we started late as well. Delivery and assessment plan. This document is your plan on how you plan to deliver an assessment, and you've got this plan document here, and you should modify that. We go into that into more detail under 1.8 when we do your assessment tools. So we look at that under standard 1.8. The DAP can also be provided to students, giving them an outline of how they're going to be undertaking their training and assessment. This is the training needs analysis form that I talked about. So when you're delivering training and assessment specifically for a company, you should complete one of these training needs analysis forms. This, once again, is for training assessment as well. This is the volume of learning that I was talking about. So standard for a certificate. So our standard certificates are Cert 3s, 4s and diplomas. So Cert 3 is 1,200 to 2,400 hours, and it should be over a 1 to 2 year period. Cert 4 is 6 months to a 2 year period, 600 to 2,400. So these are the hours. Now, the only way you can reduce these hours is if the license regulatory body, so the regulatory body for the license outcome, has stated that you can do less hours. It could also be in the companion guide that you can do less hours, or you've got industry support to state that you want to deliver it in less hours, and what are the prerequisites that you're going to make the student have prior to them coming in and doing the course. You can also make it a prerequisite that they must hold a qualification or have a minimum of 5-10 years industry experience, or currently working in the industry. So there are different ways you can bring the volume of learning down, and you should look at that when you're writing your training and assessment strategy, is how are you meeting this volume of learning. This is very big when you go to audit. If you're non-compliant with these hours, or you haven't validated why you're doing less hours, you'll be non-compliant. So you need to make sure that you're meeting the volume of learning requirements. Okay, so standards 1.5 and 1.6 is all about industry consultation, and how have you engaged industry to ensure that the way you're delivering your training and assessment will meet industry requirements. So it should be continuous and ongoing. You should be doing industry consultation on a regular basis, and the consultation should ensure that your training assessment will meet industry needs. When consulting, it's important to ensure that you speak to the right people, and that you should target people who will potentially employ your students when they've completed the course. So general managers, HR managers, business owners, any managers that might be recruiting your students once they've completed the course. They're the typical people that you should be consulting with when you do industry consultation. We went through these. This was on the TAS, so different ways that you should consult with industry. This is the industry consultation survey form that you use. This is to be undertaken with managers and business owners, where you should get the feedback from the people who would be hiring your students in the future. There are different ways you can do industry engagement, attend workshops, go to SSO workshops. You're going to see more of them this year because the SSOs are now finally getting the racks together. You will be able to see SSOs will be doing workshops and meetings. So check them out. If you don't know who your SSO is, you go to your training package and you'll actually see it in there. Should be on your TAS. You should go to the SSO and register for updates with it. Get newsletters from them so that you know when they're doing their workshops. Normally they're free. Sometimes they'll get you to pay, depends on the SSO. Might be a bit different now because the SSOs aren't as well funded as the industry skills councils were, so they might be charging now. But check out the workshops, and you should attend as many as you can. And they should be doing a few this year. Attend VET conferences and workshops. So the VEL conference is an example of a conference that you can attend. We've got our workshops. VEL Cold workshops. There's a variety of different workshops that you can attend to keep up to date with the current requirements of the standards and RTO requirements. Doing industry surveys, doing letters of support, subscribing to industry newsletters. So any industry newsletters for your industry, specifically for your industry, you should subscribe to those, and you can just use that as evidence at audit. And if you see anything in an industry newsletter where you go, we're going to have to update our training and assessment to meet this new industry need, first thing you're going to fix is your training and assessment strategy. You're going to update your training and assessment strategy, but you should also do an opportunity for improvement. So anywhere where you identify that your training and assessment strategy should be updated, you should do an opportunity for improvement and identify what should be changed on the TAS. And you can engage consultants, of course. The industry survey includes questions relating to who should complete the survey, or who is it that is completing the survey, so their name, contact details, company details, things like that. What skills gaps are we meeting? So industry and their company. What are the typical skills gaps that they're seeing in their industry? What are the typical skills gaps that they're identifying in their business, in their company? What training do they need, basically, because it's not being met at the moment? What are the essential skills and knowledge that is required by industry or their company? What are other training providers are offering? Are there sufficient training providers out there meeting their needs at the moment for training? What are the training and assessment requirements? What are they identified the students should be completing when they're doing their training assessment? What equipment should you have in place, and what equipment has industry identified that your students should have training on? What equipment should they be using? And what are the minimum skills and experience that your trainers and assessors should have? Get some feedback from your industry. What do they think you should have? They may not know, but they may know. They might say, yeah, actually, they should have at least 5 years industry experience before. Like I've seen that in order for them to be able to deliver and assess, they should have at least 5 years industry experience in something in that qualification of that area. That's the survey document there. So that's just an example of our industry survey. You can go onto Unicorn and download this. That document is in there. Industry engagement should be ongoing. It shouldn't be something you do, oh my God, I've got an audit, quickly, let's go do some industry surveys. No, you should be doing it on a regular basis. Schedule it if you need to. Schedule at least once every 6 months. You should be doing some industry consultation or surveys, sending out surveys once every 6 months, but it should be something you're doing all the time. You should be minuting it on a monthly basis. Who did we talk to? What did we learn? What improvements did we make to our training and assessment based on that feedback that we received? Did we do an opportunity for improvement form based on that? Did we update our training and assessment strategy based on that? Use the Q&C meetings for recording your industry engagement. It helps with developing your TAS, and it's really important. Our school want to see who have you engaged with when you have developed your training and assessment. How have you ensured that your training and assessment will meet industry needs? How have you ensured that? They want to know that your training and assessment is meeting industry needs. How are they going to know that you are up to date? Industry consultation. Evidence of industry consultation. That's the best way. You can do letters of support. We have a template. There's nothing worse than when you go to audit and there's 10 letters of support, exact same letter. They haven't contextualized it at all. They've just copied and pasted it and put it onto their letterhead. Try and get each company to contextualize it. We've got the letter of support document there as an example so that they know what the letter of support should look like. Get them to contextualize it. If you're doing 10 letters of support, make sure they look different. Don't use the same one. Get them to change it a bit. Even if you change it for them, you've identified this client needs your help. Why? Why are we putting this qualification on our scope? Because we've met their needs. How have you met their needs? It's not a requirement, but it is a nice to have, particularly if you contextualize it for each company. It's more important that you contextualize it for each company. It's a good example of industry engagement if you're currently working with an organisation. If you can get a letter of support from a company that you're currently working with, excellent, because it demonstrates that they actually do want to work with you. Get feedback from your trainers. Who else is going to have better industry experience and knowledge than your trainers and assessors? Get them involved with your monthly meetings and get that minuted. It's useful for industry engagement, and it's also useful for the trainers and assessors to get involved with how you are delivering your training assessment to meet their needs as well. Trainers can also complete the training evaluation forms, but they can also complete industry consultation forms as well, and it helps keep their currency. That's it. That's it for today. Wow, I got it in just over time. Excellent. Any questions? If you have any questions, post it now. If you don't have any questions and you come up with a question later, get in contact with your client liaison officer. They can answer any of your questions. You can also email me afterwards if you wanted to, so angela@vivacitycoaching.com.au. If you have any questions, you can email them to me. I'm quite happy to answer any questions that you may have, but your CLO can help you as well. This webinar has been recorded. The next webinar is on the 6th of February, so we haven't got it very long. This one was delayed because I was away, but next webinar is on the 6th of February, so we'll see that there. You've got them regularly. Photos aren't working. First Monday of each month at 3 o'clock. Every first Monday of each month will be each webinar, and they're scheduled for the rest of the year now, and you've been registered for all of them, so you'll get updates for those as well. And all of these are recorded, so you'll have access to the recording for you and your team to watch following. So you can all watch this video following, and we'll send you a link to the video following. It takes a little while for that to come through, but once it comes through, we will send you a link to the recording. Thank you for attending today's session. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed, I love doing these sessions with you. It's great when I get some interaction happening as well. But as you'll know, you'll get a link to this webinar sent to you. Great, thank you very much. Thanks, Angela, has resolved several issues I had. Oh, awesome, Richard. Glad that happened. Awesome. This is why you should attend the webinar, because you learn stuff. I don't do these webinars for no reason at all. I do this to teach you stuff because I love teaching. But also I'm helping you how to implement these policies, procedures into your organisation. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for that feedback. Love it. Love the feedback. Awesome, guys. Thank you very much. See you next month. Only a couple of weeks away. Thank you very much for attending today. I look forward to catching up with you next time. Bye.